its life as of Friday, is when we go down and we dedicate that property to you. Lord, I ask your dominion over the store down there and all those souls that will benefit as a result of its ministries. We lift all these to the Lord in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, we've got a special guest here, Mr. John. Oh, announcements, I'm sorry. I did that for John because I know it will take him a while to get up here.
Just a quick one, guys. March 19th, if you would put that on your calendars, the garden team has asked for some help. We need to get out and get that garden cleaned up for the spring as it comes back into play, where more people will be out there and the weather gets better and all that. So anybody that can come and help right after breakfast, March 19th, so we got a couple weeks to get ready. Thanks.
I just want to piggyback off of that if I can. Joe Black gave me this list for the cleanup out here. We've got a responsibility for what, 2 miles, a mile? Dave, do you know? It's about a mile. Okay, front of the church down to 44 and then a little bit over down this way, right? Just to the corner, okay. So we've been doing that for several years now, and sometimes there's pizza, sometimes there's not. But it's a nice time just to get together with the guys and go down there and pick that up, make it look nice. And we've got about 14 guys that have signed up, so it's an awesome start. But anybody that wants to come to this table, it'll be right here. And that's what day? I'm sorry, that's March 12th in a couple weeks, right after this, like at around 9:30. All right, thank you. Trash talk.
Good morning. I sing with a group called Christian Voices United, and we're getting ready to have our spring concert. Harvey and Ken sing along. It's over at Community United Methodist Church in Fruitland Park. It's on April 8th at 3 o'clock and 6:30 in the evening, 2 shows. It's Christian choral music is what it is. And if you like good Christian choral music, I have tickets available. I know Ken and Harvey have them too. They're $15 a piece. And we'd love to have you all there just to see what it is all about.
That's great. Thank you. Other announcements? Just a quick reminder, Friday is the opportunity to sign the floor over at the church and its dedication. Quick service there. Several of you signed up to help in the parking lot. Even if you go there and you're signing your name and doing all that, you want to stick around and help us with the parking lot, we can certainly use that assistance. Again, that's at 8:30 at the store to help in the parking lot. So, any other announcements? Very good. Mr. John Devine.
Good morning. It's kind of one of those days we've had something significant happen. We have a guest here today, and I'd like to welcome our guest, Joseph. Wow, that was quite an entrance. And I really love that nice coat you have on.
Well, for the record, this is, am I on?
Well, he's going to come down and...
Never had this problem in Egypt, I tell you that. We just yell, the sheep would come and all that stuff. This is not on. Oh, well, I'll just use this. All right. Yeah, well, for the record, this is not the coat that I got from my father. That coat was long and more colorful than this. However, I came in with the music, came in with the music because when people think of me, what they really think of is Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. But my story really begins before I got the Dreamcoat from my father.
How so?
Well, my family was messed up. I mean, I had 10 older brothers and an older sister from 3 different stepmothers. My father had 6 from Leah, his cousin, six brothers and 1 sister. I had 2 brothers from Leah's servant. I had 2 other brothers from my mother's servant. And this was actually, you think about cousins and stuff like that. It was okay back then. But, and then after my father had his 10 sons and daughters from these other mothers, my mother had me, and then she had my brother Benjamin, but she died. My mother died giving birth to him. So, and in addition to that, my father Jacob, you may have heard of him, he twice as I was growing up, he decided we had to flee. And when I'm talking about fleeing, I mean, we're not talking about just getting the bus ticket and heading to Greyhound and going to the next town. I mean, we had all these animals and stuff like that. He decided at one time that my grandfather, his father, came to harm him. So we all had to get up and take all of our stuff. And if that wasn't enough, he decided a different time that my uncle, his brother, was going to come and harm us. So once again, we had to get all the people and all the animals and just get out of town. Well, as you probably know, my grandfather, my uncle reconciled with my father, and nobody got hurt. But it was still kind of traumatic as a kid. So with all of that, and so many stepmothers and brothers and sisters running around and running from relatives, I could have been the poster child of anything that I do wrong, don't blame it on me, blame it on my messed up family. And I think for a while, I did do that. But when I was about 17, I got the coat, and the story begins. You see, I was my father's favorite amongst my brothers.
Why was that?
Because my father could see my mother in me. He favored me over my other brothers, and it didn't help matters that I went with it. And the coat, it wasn't just the colors of the coat, it was what it really meant.
What did it mean?
You see, the coat, as I said, I got from my father was a long coat, which showed that I wouldn't be getting dirty. I wouldn't be in the fields working hard. It was also colorful. And back in those days, the more color you had, the higher position you were. My brothers were always out tending the animals way far away, close, wherever they needed to go to get the food and grass and stuff like that. And I was at home a lot. I knew I was special, and I knew it. I never hesitated to show it, I tell you. And my father, he would occasionally send me out, hey, Joseph, go out and see how your brothers are doing. So, I'm kind of cocky. So I would go out, and sometimes I'd see my brothers, and they were doing something wrong. And I would go back and tell my father, and it got him into trouble. So they didn't like me for that. And I think that they were really afraid that one day I would be in control and run the show. So, then, when they were worried about all of this stuff, that's when I got the coat from my father. And And then came the dreams.
What dreams?
Well, I had two dreams. One, my brothers and I were out in the field, and we were bunching up bunches of grain. We were putting them all in. And all of a sudden, my bunch stood up. And then all the bunches of my brothers stood up, and they bowed to my bunch. So my brother said, "Whoa, what does that mean? What are you telling us that?" And my second dream was that there was sun and the moon and 11 stars, and they all bowed down to me. Well, my brothers, they really got mad because they said, "What are we supposed to do? We supposed to be bowing down to you?" So they were pretty angry that I was telling them these dreams. And even my father, I told him the second dream. He got a little ticked, but he didn't say a whole bunch. I felt that with these dreams and everything, that God had some special plans for me. And unfortunately, that also made me a little cocky. So here I was, a rich kid with these thoughts.
So what happened?
Well, one day my father, he asked me to go out, like he did on occasion, to check on my brothers, because they went far away, and he hadn't heard from them for a little while. And of course, I agreed, and I wore my dream coat. What I didn't know, that the jealousy in my brothers had really kind of boiled over. And when they saw me in that dream coat coming to check up on them, what they wanted to do was kill me. So they grabbed me and they started saying, "We're going to kill you." And I was scared. I tell you, I was really scared. The look in their eyes. Did I put that look in there with my attitude? At any rate, I thought sure I was a goner. But my brother Reuben said, "Wait a minute, don't kill him. After all, he is your brother." So what they did is they decided that they threw me in a cistern. It was dry, thank goodness. But they threw me in a cistern to decide what they would do with me. They took my coat. You probably know the story. They dipped it in some blood, so they went back because they were going to go back and tell my father that some animal had killed me. So when they were trying to figure out what to do with me, my other brother, Judah, saw some traders just kind of walking down the trail. So what they did was decided to sell me as a slave. Judah said, "Hey, we got to get rid of the dude somehow. This way, at least we'll make some money, and he'll be long gone."
What happened next after all of that experience?
I was ultimately sold to an Egyptian officer. And, I've always been kind of good with money and good thoughts and stuff like that. So he started giving me little things to do, and the next thing you know, I was making him a lot of money. He was very prosperous. And so I became actually almost the second in command in his household. And but the problem was that I was also very good looking. I was young and strong and cocky, and smart and all this type of stuff. So I caught the eye of this Egyptian officer's wife, and she was kind of loose, shall we say. And she wanted me to, she tried to seduce me. Now, she was fine and looking good, I tell you that. But I felt, and maybe I matured, and I felt, no, this would be against God, and it would be against a betrayal of the officer who I worked for. So I refused her. And then she accused me of rape, attempted rape. And of course, the officer got mad, and he threw me in jail.
How did that make you feel?
Well, here I was, somewhat up on top, and busted down to nothing again. Uh, the first time I felt, well, maybe I had a little responsibility being cocky with my brothers, telling them these stories and giving them all these thoughts. But this time I said, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. I followed what God was supposed to do. So then I figured, I got a choice. One, if you're going to get busted down to nothing, you might as well have some fun and sin about it. But then I thought, no, I'm going to follow God's way. And I'm just going to be true to the path that God would give me.
How did that work out?
Well, by following this righteous path, I became a favorite of the warden. And the warden also, he started putting me in charge. As a matter of fact, I was in charge of the whole prison. He was kind of lazy, actually, if you ask me, but he took all the glory, but I didn't care. It was pretty good. It wasn't like being free or anything. I still was a prisoner, but it was working for me.
How'd you get out of there?
Well, sometime after I became, in charge of the prison, the Pharaoh, we were in Egypt, the Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and his chief baker got thrown into prison because they said or did something to the Pharaoh, and he got ticked off, so we threw him into prison. Okay. So part of my duty was, of course, to look after them. Well, both the cupbearer and the baker had dreams. And back in those days, if you had a dream, especially if you had one that was really vivid, you thought that would tell you what the future was going to be. So what they did was, and if you couldn't tell, nobody knew what happened, you would get very frustrated. Here I have a vision of the future, but I don't know what it means. So I saw them one day, and they were all down, and I said, well, what's going on? And they told me, we had dreams, but we don't know what it means. So I said, I got to kind of interpret dreams on occasion, and I kind of know what's going on. I said, what are your dreams? So the cupbearer said, I dreamt I was walking through the vineyard, and I saw these grapes on this vine, 3 clusters of grapes. So what I did was I squeezed the grapes, put them in a cup, and gave them to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh drank from the cup. So I said, hey, that's good news, because what that means is that in 3 days, the Pharaoh is going to forgive you for whatever you did and bring you back and reinstate you to position. So the cupbearer said, okay, that sounds like a good dream to me. And then the baker said, I said to the baker, well, what was your dream? And he said, I had this hat with 3 baskets on it. And and it had pastries in it, and that I baked, and I was walking to give it to the Pharaoh. And all of a sudden, these birds came, and they ate all of the pastries. And I looked at him, and I said, well, that means that in 3 days, the Pharaoh's going to execute you. So it wasn't quite the thing that he. So 3 days went by, and the cupbearer got the news. He was going to be reinstated and come on back to the palace, and he was really happy about that. And then the baker, however, didn't like what was going to happen to him, because indeed he got executed. So as the cupbearer, he was very excited about this. And I said, as he was leaving, I said, say, man, hold on a second. Look, you're going to be in tight with the Pharaoh. Why don't you put a good word in for me? And then that way, just get me out of jail. All he has to do is say, release that guy. So I figured, he said, okay, man, I'll do that.
All right. Did it work?
Well, I tell you, at first I thought it would be a matter of 2 or 3 days. I figured he'd go back there and be happy, say hello to the Pharaoh, and how'd you get out? Well, I remember this and all that, and let him out. But it didn't work out like that. It was 2 years, 2 years after I talked to, and during those 2 years, I always felt that God had a path for me. And I started feeling that the path was through the cupbearer. But I'm saying this is 2 years going on. But what happened was, after 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. And he had actually 2 dreams. And he had dreams that he couldn't understand. And Pharaoh, he's the big cheese and all that. So he was asking everybody. Anybody could tell me what this dream was. Nobody could tell him. So he was getting frustrated. And I tell you, nobody wants a mean and arrogant and frustrated Pharaoh around, because no telling what he might do or tell with people. So the cupbearer, however, and I'll tell you this, this was 2 years. And the cupbearer, he already told Pharaoh something and got put in jail. So he kind of went out on his neck a little bit and said to the Pharaoh, I know a guy in jail, and this guy, when he interpreted my dream exactly the way, you ought to give him a shot. So they called for me. Now, I started thinking, I told my brothers I had what my dreams were, and that didn't work out too well. But I had the feeling that God wanted me, this is the path I was taking. So I asked the Pharaoh, I said, okay, what are your dreams? And he said, well, the first one, I was down by the river, and there were 7 healthy cows, and 7 scrawny cows came up and ate them. And I said, okay. And he said the second dream was that there was 7 healthy stalks of wheat, and 7 unhealthy, scrawny stalks of wheat came and ate them. So I thought for a minute, and I said, what this means is that you're going to have 7 years of prosperity that you've never seen before. But then, after that, you're going to have 7 years of famine. And Pharaoh, my man, I didn't say it like that, but if I were you, what I would do is have one of your smartest guys around, put him, say, or her back then, put him in charge. And he should take like 20% or whatever of the grain and stuff that you get during the years of prosperity and save it for the years of famine. So the Pharaoh looked at it and said, that's a good idea if that's what it means. And he says, I want you to do it. So the next thing I knew, once again, I was the second person in charge in all of Egypt. You'd walk around and they'd genuflect or whatever they would do, but I was the second in charge. And that was pretty cool.
Did the dreams come true?
Yes, they did. They had 7 years of prosperity. I saved a whole bunch of stuff for the years of famine, and then the years of famine came. And it wasn't just in Egypt, it was all over. So, people, those 7 years of famine, folks started running out of food. So part of my job, because Egypt had all this stuff now. We were the gold mine, was to interview people because they would come from different countries and they would say, can we buy some of your grain, please, please? And of course that made the Pharaoh very rich, which he didn't mind at all. So I was interviewing the people because the thing is, you don't want to be, you're selling grain to your enemy and the next thing you know, his army is really strong and he comes and takes all your stuff. So I had the knack of kind of figuring out who to sell it to or who not. So this is about in the second year. And I talked to one group, and then I called for the next group. And who walks in but my 10 older brothers? That's what I thought. No, that's fine. My 10 older brothers. Now, they didn't recognize me. I recognized them immediately. I just I knew who they were. They didn't, and I understand that. I was older. I was in these fine clothes, and they were hungry, and they were focusing in on the grain. So at first, I wanted to just kind of hug them and say, hey, it's me and stuff like that. But then I noticed that Benjamin wasn't there. So I'm thinking, these folks, they got the same attitude. Look, I remember what they did to me. Did they do the same to young Benjamin, my brother? So I decided that I would test them. And what I did was I called them liars. I called them spies. I told them, you're just here to get our grain and to try to rob us. And they, of course, they were, no, 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 no. So I said, well, tell me about your family. And they said, well, we have a father. He's whatever old he was. He's doing good. And we have a younger son, a younger brother named Benjamin. So I seized on that. I said, you bring me back Benjamin. I'm going to take one of these brothers and keep him. And you bring me back Benjamin. And I'll know that you're not a thief.
What did you do then?
Well, they did leave, and it was famine, right? So I knew they'd come back because I gave them enough, but I knew that we had more years of famine. And one of the tricks I did was I said, I'll make them scared too. So I put their money back in the bags of grain, so when they got home and opened it up, they said, oh man, they would feel that I thought that they were stealing from them. But then they came back. And this time, they had Benjamin. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they're all right. Maybe they're all right. Benjamin's here. I didn't tell them who I was. But I said, I just got to get one more test just to see, because I just didn't trust them after they were trying to kill me. So what I did was I gave them the grain. I told the manager of the palace, I said, this is what you do. You put their money back, and you put my special silver chalice in Benjamin's sack. Let them get away from the city. Then you come and then you grab them, search the sacks, find the chalice in Benjamin, and tell them that whoever had the chalice is going to be my slave. So that's what they did. And I figured that they would bring, and as they brought Benjamin back, they brought back, all 10 of the brothers came back. And then they were crying, oh, don't take Benjamin, our father would just die, don't do this. And then finally, Judah said, now Judah was the one that actually in the day said, let's sell Joseph for money. And Judah said, wait, I will take his place. I will take Benjamin's place if you let him go back to his father. And with that, I couldn't handle it anymore. I told them who I was. I said, I'm your brother. And they kind of looked, and we all just hugged each other and kissed each other. And we were making so much joyful noise that the Pharaoh heard about it and said, what's going on in there? And he said, when he found out it was my family, he said, have your father, your entire family, come move to Egypt. That's how we got to Egypt. And bring them all, animals and all the stuff. So that's how we settled into Egypt. And everything seemed to be all right.
So what did you learn going through this experience?
I learned several things. First of all, I learned that my family history didn't control my actions. I learned that people can change. I changed. My brothers changed. So that always have your heart open for people that change, even though they may have done you wrong. I think that God used me with all these trials that I had, to teach me, to refine me, and prepare me for the next one. Um, the road, I think, is long for everybody. It's got its ups and downs. You don't know what's going to happen. It can be confusing, and it certainly isn't on your timetable. Sometimes I think that when we reach the end of one road, we're surprised because God has another one. It's kind of like, you retire and you say, hey, I had 23 years of being a candle maker, and that's what God wanted me to be. But if you listen and keep in your heart, listening to God, He might give you another path, and that path might even be more fulfilling. And I believe that all roads that God leads you to, He has His hands on you. And if you follow that road, you'll be blessed. And if you follow the Holy Spirit, and if you allow and follow Him to the roads that God has given you and shown you the way, in the end, you'll be in heaven, and you'll be with God, and you'll be with the people you love and the people that love you, and you'll be able to dance with Jesus. Thank you very much.
Oh, Joseph, thank you. Wow, what a story. As we go into our time at your table, maybe think about what in your family history did you not have control over the actions, but it had a great deal of impact on you? Because we've all had oh, there they are.